Okay, welcome back to Uncensored. Now, not just because it's Halloween, but we figured that this is a ongoing debate, if you must say. Some people are scared to talk about it. People fear what happens, but it's kind of unknown territory. So I believe there's a lot of speculation that goes into it, but we want to get an idea of what everybody else thinks about the particular topic. We're talking about death.
Death. And where you go after. We accept that we all have to die. Some people say you don't die, you just pass on to something else. But that goes into the question we're asking tonight about what happens after you are buried, if you don't want to call it dying.
Or like when everything shuts down. I mean, because some might say there's different types of death and that kind of thing. We're talking about when your body is done, the mind, heart, everything shuts down. What happens? And now we have a very interesting panel of just different areas. Starting with, we have a shaman and an indigenous healer. That's Robert Perriman. He's been here before. How are you doing, Robert?
I'm good.
Hi, Robert. We have Shahid Mohammed, who is an Arabic and Islamist studies teacher. Good evening.
Hi. Hello.
And on the line, we have Ordina Tucker, who is an elder at the Palm Seventh-day Adventist Church. Good evening, Mr. Tucker.
Hi. Good evening.
Okay, so we kick this off by asking the first question. Does everyone have to die? I want to know, like, just going around the table, if your faiths would differ on that basic premise of death.
That's an excellent question. And we as Muslims, we do believe that everyone will die except the Creator, God. So everyone will die except God, as the Quran says, Kullu nafsin dha'iqatul maut. Everyone will taste death except God.
And what in the Islamic faith is death? I mean, we spoke earlier and we said, we tried to define it, but give me your definition.
Excellent. We have two types of death that we will experience. We have minor death and major death. Minor death is something you and I experience every single day if you get sleep. And that's what it is. Minor death in Islam is when you go to sleep, your body is in a state where you're unaware of what's going on. That's a taste of death. Major death is when you transition from this world onto the world unseen.
Makes me not want to go to bed tonight.
I know.
No, it's something you experience all the time.
All right, so let's hear from Robert. First of all, tell me what faith I would classify a shaman in, and then you give me better context to answer this question.
Yeah. A shaman is more of a spiritual individual. We do not really ascertain or facilitate ourselves with a specific religion. Being that we're indigenous healers, we see ourselves as stewards for the earth itself, and to help individuals to heal and to move on to the afterlife into a healed state. So that being, we wouldn't have a religion to say that, all right, I wouldn't work with a Christian or I wouldn't work with a Muslim and specific faiths. Whatever is the faith of the individual, once they believe in a supreme being, we work with them.
So your particular doctrine, I'm sorry.
No, man, go ahead.
It doesn't matter what religion you are. You just have a specific set of principles or things that you go by. And
you believe in God, right?
Yeah, of course.
You believe this God faced death as well?
No.
So God cannot die.
Cannot die.
You agree with that?
Yeah.
Excellent.
But you believe everybody else can die?
Well, when we touch on that aspect now, the belief is that individuals, the physical body can die, but it doesn't have to die. And what we have learned through our traditions and through seeking guidance from spirit is that there have been individuals on this earthly plane that have also experienced that. It is, I found it interesting that you compared minor death and major death to dreaming. We as shamans speak about dreaming the world into being. And an individual that has done this would have been the bodhisattvas of Buddhism or Jesus Christ that has attained that level of awareness and that connection to source, that they're seeing life from that space of source and thus transcend. So
that sounds very spooky.
It's very deep. But before we go on, I do want to get Mr. Tucker. He's an elder at the Palm Seventh-day Adventist Church. Again, we're asking about the question: can everyone die?
Well, man is made mortal, and the fact that man is made mortal means that man can die. Will all men die? Not necessarily. There may be, at the coming of Christ, as the Bible teaches, that there will be persons who may be and will be alive when Jesus comes again. So, persons, because of our mortality, will face death and are subject to death. But that doesn't necessarily mean that at the coming of Christ, which is the point at which a person transitions from being mortal to being immortal. There may be persons who would still be alive, and the Bible talks about those who are dead, that they will be caught up to meet Christ, and those that are alive and remain will all be caught up to meet him in the sky.
Well, let's see if I can clarify this a bit more, because you said all will die, but when Christ returns, then it's pretty much like a resurrection. But are you talking about a resurrection of the body, or what type of death are you speaking of when you say death? Death of the body?
Literal, physical death.
Okay, physical death.
Yes.
But there's a part of us that lives on in your interpretation.
No. The Bible doesn't teach us that.
Okay.
The Bible teaches that, and for me to explain this, I need to go to the origin, where it says in Genesis that God made man from the dust of the earth and breathed into his nostrils, and man became a living soul. And so the body and the breath equates to a living soul. And as such, when the opposite happens, when the breath goes, all that is left is the body. So there's nothing that remains.
No abiding spirit, nothing like that from your perspective.
From our perspective and from what the Bible teaches, based on our understanding, that's it. You have a body and the breath, which equates to a living soul.
And is that the same with the Islamic faith?
It's what's his name again?
It's Mr. Tucker.
Mr. Tucker.
Right.
It seems a bit confusing, but as Muslims we believe that the soul will pass on to an abode where it will either be punished or it will be rewarded. But the physical body will die and everyone will resurrect, and will resurrect in a different creation, in a different being. A being in which some people will be able to see the Creator, and we're not in a state right now in terms of our feeble body where we can see the Creator. But when we die, we will transition into another form in the hereafter, not on this world, of course. And on the day of judgment, you have people who will see God and whatnot.
Mr.
So
Tucker,
that's what we believe.
Just correct me if I'm wrong, though. I part of what I believe to understand, they speak of in Christianity the God in three persons,
Trinity.
The Trinity, right?
Yes.
And the Holy Spirit, that sort of thing. So when we talk about the physical death, like using, for example, Jesus Christ, when his body was nailed to the cross and he died, there was an aspect of him that lived on. That doesn't exist with everybody else?
That's not when Christ died on the cross. He died literally, physically.
Okay.
There wasn't a part of him that remained alive. The Bible teaches that it was God who sent forth to call him back alive, similar to what Jesus would have done while he was on earth. That he would have using the power of God, as he would have tapped into that power to call different persons alive. And we have several examples of that which he would have done. And one is Lazarus.
So, Mr. Tucker,
Yes.
this is Shahid speaking.
Okay, hi Shahid.
Hi, Mr. Tucker. So you're saying that when Jesus died on the cross, he died physically and spiritually? That's what you're saying?
No, I didn't say spiritually. Spiritual death is a different
It's a different
Okay,
aspect.
it's a different aspect.
No,
Okay.
now I understand.
So how do human beings die a spiritual death? Because if we die a spiritual death, where is the spiritual life? Does the spiritual life go with the physical life?
Spiritual life speaks to the relationship with Christ, right? All of man's living is basically about his relationship with God, and God, Christ is that the person who God would have appointed or taken on the responsibility to come and to carry out salvation or to offer man a new lease on life. So spiritual life is basically how is it that you relate to God, who is a spirit. So you have a mortal body, a physical body that is subject to death.
That lives on earth.
That lives on earth,
of
right?
course, yeah.
But when you relate to Christ, you transcend from being just a mortal, you remain a mortal, but you now have a link into the spiritual life of Christ, so that even though you may die physically, the spiritual connection that you have with God, so that spiritual connection will cause you to be resurrected, because you have, as we say, our life become tied up in the life of Christ.
Okay, there's a point that I think both yourself and Mr. Muhammad made, and I'm going to turn to Mr. Perriman, Robert, because you mentioned, in a sense, the physical body living on Earth. Now, can only the physical body exist here? And I'm asking Robert that question. Are there other beings or other forms of existence here on Earth?
What my tradition teaches is that other than the physical body, as we've spoken towards here, there is the soul. And we have a differentiation between soul and spirit, in the sense that we reserve the title of spirit for creator.
Okay.
Right? Soul is what we identify with. We don't identify with the physical body.
Okay.
So for us, death of the physical body to us is not death. Most things that are seen in indigenous practices mimic what is in nature. Even the Bible talks about as above, so below. There are crustaceans, crabs, that during a cycle in their life, they literally leave the shell, which is their exoskeleton. They leave the shell and they wander off on their own, protected by the environment, by nature, Mother Gaia, whatever name you want to give it, Spirit, God, and they develop and grow a new, larger shell, exoskeleton, which protects them. So I guess this would tap into our next level, which would deal with reincarnation, but it is a physical example on Earth of shifting from what one would associate with as the physical body, the vessel that we're contained in, and seeing that there's an aspect of ourselves that transcends the physical. So we agree that we communicate with spirit through the soul, through that intangible aspect of our being. My standpoint is that
being God, right?
Correct.
God,
Spirit,
soul
great spirit,
being, right.
great architect, God, source, Wakantanka, whatever name.
Whatever you call him.
Yeah.
As Muslims, we do believe, as it was taught to us in the Quran, that Allah has created two beings that live on earth: the human being and the being we call the jinn. No, the jinn. I don't want to sound too scary right now, right? But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah the Exalted say, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ, that we have not created man nor the jinn kind except for the purpose of worship. So it's the jinn kind that lives on earth are basically the unseen souls that wander around us, basically, and they're expected to obey their creator. They're expected to things that man see as being phenomenal, and things that happen in the universe, things that happen in the world, and they can't attribute it. It's superhuman, basically.
Can we equate your jinn? Can we equate your jinn with the Christian concept of a guardian angel?
No.
What's the difference between the two?
They're jinns. They're angels. Angels are not in Islam. Angels are not ones who have a choice to recognize or worship God. They worship God. They must. It's without a doubt.
So the jinn can choose.
So the jinn can choose, just like the human being.
So the jinn can be evil.
Yes, the jinn can be evil and the jinn can be good. So you have good jinn and you have bad jinn. In the same way, you have good men and you have bad men. You have men who obey the laws of God and you have men who disobey. The same thing with the jinn. You know what we call as devils and spirits and whatnot, people who are being possessed and these kind of things. In Islam, we do believe in the jinn kind and the mankind, and that they're both compelled to follow the Creator who created them for the purpose of worship.
All right, can I ask a question? And I'll throw this out to everybody. What happens then when we die? When the physical body dies, what happens at that point?
This is not a discussion that has started in 2013. This has always been a discussion on the lips of man from the beginning of time.
And a better question, not to stop you, I know you're going to go into it, but is it all speculation? Can anybody speak definitively as to what happens?
And the Quran answers your question very specifically, and in a chapter that is called The Great News. Allah states, Allah of course is a name for the Creator, it's an Arabic name. Allah states, Amma yatasa'alun, what are they questioning about? What are they discussing? And just picture this, in the time when of course Muhammad is the last and final messenger of Allah, and I want you guys to basically be there, take yourselves back to when Muhammad was receiving basically revelation, and people were discussing what we're discussing now, what happens after death. And so Allah revealed, Amma yatasa'alun, what are they asking about? Anin naba'il azim, on this great news, alladhi hum fihi mukhtalifun, about in which they are among themselves in controversy. And people are discussing these things, and it's all speculation here and it's speculation there. People are saying we're going to come back as a cow, people are saying we're going to be this, people are saying we're going to be that. It's speculation. Now the revelation, and we have to understand that man has three types of knowledge, or there are three types of knowledge available to us. You have instinctive, you have inferred knowledge. Inferred knowledge is calculative knowledge to observe and deduce, and you have revelation. Revelation is a knowledge that will tap into the details of the unseen. It's not based on observation, it's not based on calculation, which is why I really wanted the atheists to be here, because it's not based, the unseen world is not based on observation, it's not based on calculation, it is based on revelation. So the source of what really happens, if you don't want it to be speculative, it has to be from the Quran.
Does belief in spirit or in jinn or in your case, the vessel that carries the spirit, does belief or disbelief affect the functionality of spirit? And I don't want to exclude Mr. Tucker, seeing that your position is that there is really no spirit. But for those who do not hear much about that discussion, how does it affect their spiritual existence after they die? What impact will it have on them?
Death? What impact would death have
on the spirit of that person who does not believe that they have a spirit to care for, to lead, to guide?
Well, not being speculative, referring to the Quran and the tradition of Islam, the Messenger Muhammad, may peace and blessings be upon him, and all the other prophets, he referred to the journey the soul, the spirit takes at death. So at death you have, in the beginning part of death, you have what you would call the waiting period. This is right before you die, and Allah said that angels will come down, whether you're good or bad. Angels will come down because they're basically the ones who take care of the commands of God. He commands something to happen and they take care of it, right? So angels will come down at that time. Now, if the soul is considered a good soul, then they will extract the soul from the body like a drip of water dropping from a jug. If the soul is considered a transgressive, rebellious soul, then the angels would drag that soul out of the body as if it is cotton wrapped in barbed wire. And that's basically, so the soul will be being torn out of the body. This is the Islamic perspective on how death affects the soul.
Mr. Tucker, can you draw any parallels to that? Is there anything similar, or is it quite different when it comes to the Christian faith?
Well, as I had said before, as the Bible speaks to the soul, the soul is basically the coming together of the body and the breath. That's a coming together of a mortal person, and as such, when a person dies, the opposite happens. That's a physical death. The breath becomes separated from the body, and so there's no soul.
What is the breath called?
Sorry?
What is it? Do you have a name for the breath? Because you're saying that the soul is a combination of breath and body, right?
Correct.
So is there another reference to the breath aspect of who we are?
The Bible uses another word to refer to the breath. It misinterprets its use, and the word that is used is spirit. Okay. And you have examples where it says that the spirit goes back to God, which is one of those passages that is many persons confused. But when you really study to recognize that the spirit speaks only and specifically to or it is in the context in which it is used, it speaks.
Hello?
Wherever in the Bible you take it, the equation is the same.
Okay.
But when it comes on to the physical person, it's the body and the spirit. And earlier we spoke about spiritual death, which is, as I said before, it was a different thing. where the relationship with God comes in. Is where you are separated spiritually from God.
Understood.
A person who is separated from God experiences eternal death. So there are two different deaths that the Bible talks about.
Okay.
Physical death, which is the separation of the body from the spirit. Sorry, from the breath. The breath and the body is separated. But the spiritual death, where the man and God gets separated, which is eternal.
Which sounds a bit similar to what you were saying with the wrapped in barbed wire and cotton. Kind of sounds like a...
It's very rigid. Mr. Tucker, do you believe, so I'm sure you being a Seventh-day Adventist, right? You believe that Jesus is the Son of God?
Definitely so.
Okay, and not God.
I believe that Jesus is both the Son of God and is God.
So he's
In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. John 1 verse 1.
Understood. So in your case, you believe that Jesus and that God can die.
I do not believe that God can die. Jesus took on mortal status.
Okay.
The condition or the state, he became a man.
So the mortal aspect of God died?
No.
All right.
we don't want to send it that direction.
He's gonna go somewhere else.
I see where the direction...
What I want to get at though, when you speak about the separation of spirit from, of breath from body and then spirit from the Creator, where do these things go? Because in the heaven and hell concept that I have, based on my understanding of Christianity, Mr. Tucker, is it that the body goes to heaven or hell, whichever one, or the spirit goes to heaven or hell?
Neither is correct.
So what happens with the heaven or hell?
Okay, so let's take it now. When a person dies, what happens? We said that the body is separated from the breath. The breath goes back to air. God contains everything, so God owns it, right?
Right.
See? Which is made of clay, returns to the dirt. Until there is no remembrance or recollection of that person or anything about that person, until the day when Christ comes again and calls us.
So what happens on that day, though? Is it the body that returns, the breath, or is it something different?
You know, the Bible talks about a more beautiful, I'm going to be using the word body, right? Which is not like the body. It may very well be the form with hands and feet and stuff as we have now. I can't say, but it says that we shall be changed
in a different creation. Understood as
from being mortal,
right?
But a new different recreated. We will no longer be mortal, but we will be immortal. Means that at that point, those who are resurrected and taken to heaven will be transformed from being subject to death to no longer being subject to death, from mortal to being immortal.
Robert, let me just get Robert back in the conversation. You are not aligned to anything. It means that there is no religious book that tells you on the day of judgment this will happen, and this in the flowers, and this in the garden.
Can I ask you first? Is this all foreign to you? All right,
no.
Is this kind of
all of this?
Okay.
So how does this? My question to you is then, why should we not die when we die? What is it that tells you that something happens after death? He has the Quran. Mr. Tucker has the Bible. You really have nothing tangible with historical.
What do you think happens after we die? What goes
First
where?
of all, the traditions that I follow have been passed down orally throughout the ages. And
explain the traditions. You say I don't know what you mean when you say the traditions.
All right, this tradition comes from the Quero, which are in the Andes of Peru. The Andean people, and they have been existing there. They are the descendants of the Inca.
Okay.
So from prehistoric days, these traditions have been passed down and have been passed over to the West. And from this, what I have learned, because a part of the lessons, a part of the learning, a part of the training to become not just someone aware of the knowledge, but a healer, is a rite that they consider the death rite. And during that rite,
so you have to die?
Yeah. So it is a personal experience, not from someone else that they wrote in a book, but each individual has a personal experience, and then they will speak with the person that is teaching them, and they will get some guidance as to the symbolism or the experience that was received.
So at some point in time, under your own particular doctrine, you've died.
Yeah, correct.
And your death wasn't necessarily a physical death, it was more like the dream. death that you're talking about? Because you're here before me now, so if you're, is your heart beating?
Have you died already?
There wasn't a medical doctor to check the physical body. I guess in medicine you'd consider it the Lazarus syndrome, where one stops all functions for a short period of time and returns, and has no concept of time itself, and is really changed.
You mean like sleep? You seem to be describing sleep, because when I say
what he said, his heart, everything stops, all functions stop.
Everything
your
stops.
brain, everything you don't.
But your brain
There's no.
So you have experienced that?
Yes, correct.
And you have spoken with your religious guide about what that experience...
Spiritual guide, yes.
I'm sorry. Forgive me. Your spiritual guide, what that means for you.
Yes, I've actually traversed what we would call the upper world, because as a part of being a healer, it is to help people who have in this life so that they can pass through the lower tiers, which Catholicism would call purgatory, Buddhism would call the Bardo planes, which are the lower levels, and as he described as that waiting period, that transitionary period. So to guide someone through this, you have to experience yourself.
Okay, you mentioned a couple of things. One is purgatory, which is something that I'd love to touch on, but we're going to do that when we come back after the break. You're still listening to Uncensored on Fame 95. Welcome back to Uncensored here on Fame 95. We're talking about the topic of where do we go after we die. I'm Michael Cuff.
And I'm Crystal Tomlinson. With us this evening, we have a very diverse panel. We have Robert Pierman, who's a shaman and indigenous healer, Shahid Mohammed, who is an Arabic and Islamist studies teacher, Ordina Tucker, elder at the Palm Seventh-day Adventist Church, and joining us in a short while, Clive Forrester, who's an atheist, who's bringing a completely new perspective to this debate, to rubbish, I suppose, the claims that there is some spirit and life and all of that.
Or we'll see exactly what he has to say. So far, though, it's been an interesting debate. Mr. Tucker?
Yes.
Hate to leave you at this point in time, but just your final word. Well, I do want to ask you this question before you go. Has anyone been able to escape death?
Escape death?
Cheat death, escape death, go around it?
Well, unless we're speaking about a person like Enoch, that the Bible talks about, taken by God and did not face death. But outside of that, the Bible teaches, and all of what I've experienced is that people who live, mortal man, is subject to death and will die, except for the condition that if you remain alive when Jesus comes again, that if you are spiritually right with God, then you will be accorded that grand privilege of going to heaven with him.
Excuse me, Mr. Tucker, so are you saying that Ezekiel died?
Ezekiel?
Yeah.
Of course he did.
He did?
He did, yes.
So what was the chariot for?
But he didn't? I'm sorry?
No, I'm asking about the chariot.
The chariot of fire?
Yeah.
Hello?
Yes, I'm here. Unless you're suggesting or speaking to something that in which someone was taken up in a chariot.
That's what he's saying.
Was that Ezekiel or was that Elijah?
Elijah, yes, correct. Because you only mentioned Enoch.
Oh, you see, I mentioned the one. Mentioned the one.
All right, Mr. Tucker, before you go, one final thing. The doctrine within Christianity centers on suffering in this life to live a better life after. If nothing happens after we die, how significant of an impact does it have on the Christian doctrine and preaching?
If nothing happens?
If you die and that's it.
Well,
how does that affect your faith?
You'd have died and there would be nothing else, right? You would not even know. Because there's no consciousness after you die. That's what the Bible teaches.
Well, couldn't one argue that's the basis for everything in Christianity, because we're worried about if we're going to heaven or hell? So if there was no heaven, no hell, nothing, you're just dead and gone, then what technically,
you see, the thing is, as a Muslim, we
would not be anything else, right? Because the Bible creates the basis for the belief system of Christians, right? And the Bible teaches that when a man dies, that's not necessarily the end. While he is totally unconscious, there's no part of him that continues to live while he is dead. There, however, is a time when God will come and take and call those persons who have established a relationship with him over their lifespan to live again with him in an immortal state and forever.
Thank you very much. Ordner Tucker is an elder at Palm Seventh Adventist Church. Thanks so much for sharing your views on Uncensored.
Thank you very much.
Okay, and we're going to hopefully have join us right now Mr. Clive Forrester. Is Mr. Forrester on the line?
Yes, I am.
How are you doing, Mr. Forrester?
I'm fine.
I wish I had a nice big title for you, but we have him here as atheist.
That's fine. I guess you could also add a secular humanist. So
Explain that, because I saw that title of a secular humanist. Is that different from an atheist, or is it a fluffy way of saying the same thing?
no. Well, you see, the word atheist doesn't inform anyone about my moral outlook on life.
Oh.
Secular humanist does. The atheist just tells you what I do not accept, which is a belief in a person of God and religion and that spiritual stuff.
Okay, Mr. Forrester, we have here Shahid Mohammed. He's an Arabic and Islamic student teacher, and he just seems to be, he was hoping you'd be on the show tonight because he had a bunch of questions as it relates to death, right?
Okay.
Okay.
Death, not the existence of
Right.
God. We're focusing on
As it
death.
relates to death that we're talking about tonight.
I was listening to the show earlier, and it was just absolutely painful to listen to one unsubstantiated assertion after the other. It was really, none of what was said before about life after death has any truth value whatsoever.
Well, can I ask you first of all, before Mr. Mohammed jumps into you, what is your perspective on death? What do you think happens?
You just die. You return to the place where you were before you were born.
And where is that?
Just non-existence.
So there's no heaven, no hell, no purgatory, no nothing at all. You're just dead.
No hell, no paradise, no Valhalla, none of that, no nirvana, nothing.
And what's the basis for your saying that? You're just going off of what? Scientific belief or what you know?
Where is it?
Lack of evidence.
Lack of evidence.
So, well, could you tell me, is there anybody on the show now that is dead?
Well, you know what the point I have to make before Robert has died.
Robert said he's died.
Did you guys try to get anybody who is dead to come on the show tonight?
We couldn't find any.
But what I wanted to note though is that the absence of evidence is not enough to make a claim that there's an absence of being. So before we could prove that there was oxygen, should we not have believed that there was oxygen because science had not evolved enough to prove it?
Give me a second. In the absence of evidence, you cannot say that the claim is true. The truth value is now unspecified. So I mean, what you could say in fairness is that the claim is neither true nor false.
Okay.
But before
I'm
we
not
can,
sure right now
but
are
before-
all asserting contradictory truths about life after death.
Before we even go into the details of death, you see, as I mentioned earlier on, the details of death is a type of knowledge that is only given by revelation and not inferred knowledge. And of course, we have instinctive knowledge, we have inferred knowledge, and we have knowledge based on revelation. Now, I don't know if you
What kind of knowledge do
you believe that, but then we have to go back. If it is
after death?
Yeah, if it is that we want to be logical and use our common sense and rationalize and reason, we'd have to believe in a creator, right? We'd have to believe that someone created us.
No.
We'd have to believe that someone brought us here.
Hold on a second. Let me hear his response to that.
No, you do not. Please, you do not have to believe in a creator. It is absolute nonsense to suggest that. There is no evidence to suggest that
There's massive evidence. You exist, you're speaking to me. There's no way you could have existed without being created. In the same way I have a son Ericsson.
Rubbish, absolute rubbish. No, rubbish.
In the same way you're speaking on us. If I said to you that phone you're talking
rubbish.
on was not created, it was not invented. As a matter of fact, the lightning struck, the thunder rumbled, and the phone you're speaking on came from that. You would say absolutely
No.
rubbish. As a matter of fact, I drive a Honda Civic.
Hold on a sec, gentlemen. Again, we're going back to creator.
Yeah.
No, but you see, the thing is,
So could I just get a second to respond?
Go ahead.
in terms of,
Hold on.
yeah, go ahead.
This is a typical fallacy which is promulgated by religious persons. They tend to compare something like a phone or an aeroplane to life. I've never seen a baby phone or a baby aeroplane. You cannot compare the two things.
But does
And in
it
that-
mean
the
then
same
that
token,
yeah,
right.
doesn't it mean that life is so complicated that if a
It had to
basic
be.
phone needs a creator, a being that will grow up and have gray hair and grow breasts and on all of these things, we
Argument.
have to have a more complicated beginning than a Sony Ericsson?
That's why, but give me a second to explain why it doesn't follow.
Sure.
You already know that somebody made the phone. That is why you can't compare the two. You can't compare something like a phone with something like a complex organism, a
So-
biological organism, a carbon-based life form.
I must ask this one question then, Mr. Forrester. Then I'll leave it here. Where the whole creator thing. Where did we come from in your terms?
We evolved.
From what?
From what?
From what?
How is it that this particular idea is not catching on with Jamaican persons?
No, but where do we come from? You said we evolved
We
from,
evolved
from
from
where?
what?
Or afraid of the theory of evolution?
Well,
Where do we
where do we
evolve from?
evolve from? Yeah.
Did you just hear what I said?
No, we're saying what did we
Where-
evolve from? Because to evolve means to move from one state to another. So what was the primary state
What was the primary state of what?
of us?
Us.
We
Humans.
who evolved.
We evolved from what?
Jesus.
Jesus? I think that
Nobody-
I would agree with you.
Hold on.
No.
No, he didn't
All
say
right.
Jesus.
Let me. No.
Let me just let me pause for 1 second, then I'll let you go ahead. You're refuting creation because you're saying that obviously there's no evidence. We talk about a phone, we know who made the phone.
No evidence.
So we're talking about us now, human beings, right? Clearly something or someone had to make us, and I'm saying to you, in your own definition, who or what made us?
No, but this is what I'm getting to. I'm getting to the theory of evolution. Have you never heard about the theory of evolution?
Yes, we have.
Everybody knows the Genesis explanation, and everybody knows it. Any thinking person will realize it's nonsense. Fine, but as it relates to the theory of evolution, this is well documented. It's peer reviewed. There is tons of evidence in our species as well as in other species. There is no way to explain the fact that we are genetically related to every other living thing on the planet, other than by suggesting that all life on the planet has a common ancestor.
Well, what I want to share is that you,
What is the religious explanation for the fact that we share 99.9% of our DNA with chimpanzees?
well, you could say that parts of everything in nature is a part of us as well. Carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, everything. But what I like
why
that you
is it
stated,
that
wait,
we share that
what I like that you stated.
similarity with chimpanzees?
Hold on.
Wait.
We can't get into that creationist
One quick point.
discussion.
What I like that you stated, intuitively, what you said is what all spiritual individuals and religious individuals believe, that when you die, you return to the space in which you came from. And that shows that subconsciously you are aware that there is a space and that there is something that is greater than us. There is a realm that is separate from the physical realm.
No, you return to non-existence.
All right, let's.
So just to be clear then, Mr. Forrester then, as far as you're concerned then, when you die, there is no soul, there is no spirit, there is no...
None of that.
It's just the body dead and it goes back to the earth.
100% mythology.
Okay.
In the case of the Abrahamic religion, it's Hebrew mythology. In the case of Muslims, it's Arabic mythology. You have Hindu mythology. You have Yoruba mythology, Greek mythology, Norse mythology. All of that stuff is myth.
So how would you explain this preoccupation among all these faiths and perspectives, this preoccupation with not just death, but what happens after it?
Why are we so interested in that?
That's perfectly easy to explain. If you can assert that after death there exists a particular realm where you will either receive eternal reward or eternal punishment, and you can get people to buy into this idea and tell them that if you come to this particular church or mosque or temple, it will somehow more or less guarantee your entry into the place that gives you the eternal reward, then you have people under control.
So it's fair to say that you would agree with Marx's perspective that religion is really just the opium of the people. It's a form of and method of control as opposed to liberation, as they would have you believe.
it really and truly dulls your ability to think critically. It dulls your ability to be skeptical, and eventually is like a kind of mind control. And in some instances, it graduates from mind control to complete mind virus.
Now, hold on, because that's one school of thought from Mr. Forster. Mr. Forster, we still have to ask a couple of questions as it relates to death, and you two gentlemen. So I'm going to just, Mr. Forster, I'm not cutting you off, but we're saying hold on a second, because we do want to talk about, there are some schools of thought that believe there is life after death. So I must ask the question about purgatory. And before, I won't get to you just yet. I'll speak to Mr. Mohammed, which is purgatory is the idea that there's a place in between before you go to the heaven or the hell, or I'm not too sure exactly how it is with the Quran.
Yeah, in Islam we have what you call barzakh, hayatul barzakh, and it is a life that you have in the grave. So as Muslims, we believe that there's a time you spend in the grave, and your body and your soul will feel either the blessings of the grave or the punishments of the grave. And this also goes back to how you live your life. Basically the only companion a person would have in his grave are his good deeds. And that's why as Muslims, our most beloved thing to us is not our wives, is not our children, not our vehicles, not our cars, because these things will not share any space with us in our graves, but rather the most beloved thing to the Muslim are our good deeds, because those are what will warm and keep our graves nice and spacious and until the day of judgment, until the day of resurrection. So that's the Muslim's perspective.
2010 raised some interesting questions about the Muslim faith. We wondered if suicide, because in Christianity suicide is definitely a sure shot sentence to hell. For the Muslim, how is suicide reconciled in the faith? Is it considered a good deed?
Well, we refer to the Quran once again, and Allah says in the Quran,
2011, I'm sorry, I said
وَلَا تُلْقُوا بِأَيْدِيكُمْ إِلَى التَّهْلُكَةِ, and do not throw yourselves to death. Do not commit suicide. وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ, Allah says in the Quran, and do not kill yourselves. As a matter of fact, the punishment for suicide is the hellfire, is punishment and not reward. Many people think that if they blow up themselves, they're doing something good, and we're isolating these occurrences to parts of the world whose people we can't even relate with what they go through on a daily basis and the oppression they experience. Not to say that I'm justifying anything, but as Islam states, suicide is a big no-no.
So is it a whole different set of...
No,
ask a quick question. Is it possible for me to ask a question?
Sure, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yes. Could you say with any kind of certainty that any of these jihadists who blew themselves up aren't now celebrating in paradise with 72 virgins? Can you say that with definitive certainty? They are not there in paradise now.
Hold on a second.
Yeah, you can respond.
Okay, when it comes to the unseen, when it comes to the world unseen, we can only we're not certain whether we're going. And this is the thing with Muslims, we're not certain whether we're going to paradise or the hellfire. It's not like I'm a Muslim, I'm guaranteed paradise, I will go to paradise, I'm saved. So when it comes to our destination,
Islam,
yeah, man, I'm answering your question, Mr. Forrester. So when it comes to the hereafter, we're not sure where we're going, paradise or the hellfire. However, there are descriptions or characteristics of people who deserve paradise and who deserve the hellfire. The characteristics of people who deserve the hellfire are people who kill themselves, people who blow up themselves, people who cause harm to others. These are characteristics of people who will go to the hellfire. So your question referring to if I am certain that these people are not rejoicing, if they fit the characteristics that lead them to the hellfire, then I can only speculate that they're in the hellfire, that they're not enjoying 72 virgins, whatnot, and so.
What is going on?
Sorry, say that again, please, because it chips out when he talks.
Okay, I just wanted to be sure that you were speculating.
Oh, I'm not speaking definitively.
I'm not speaking definitively, yes.
All right. Robert, I must rein you in because we're getting close to the end of the show.
All right.
What can you say about purgatory?
Purgatory.
Because you guys apparently say you can speak to the dead, or you use the whole pulling the soul back in and that kind of
Soul loss.
Oh my goodness.
So hold on, Mr. Forrest. Hold on a sec.
What happens is that our tradition teaches, and through the experiences that you've garnered, that there are 5 levels to the upper world. The first level, through symbolism, they would coincide with what they call the stone people. It is a level of darkness, very low vibrations. This is normally individuals that have suffered soul loss and life loss in the same space. So someone that was raped, someone that was traumatized, so they find themselves stuck in this space, unable to communicate, waiting for an opportunity to make peace with an individual or make peace with themselves and move on. The whole purpose of these 5 levels is to grow yourself and to groom yourself to return to the light. The second level, they'd consider it for plants. It's symbolic of plants because there's light there, there's awareness, there's communication, but the difference with this plane is that again there's that requirement of growth. There is that observance of your life and the deeds that you did and the things that you did during that life, and again because they're indigenous individuals, they would symbolically correlate them to stones, plants, and then the next level would be the animals, which deals with global consciousness, which deals with absorption into nature, because their belief is that animals don't have individual souls as humans do. They have a collective soul. So in this level, to move from it is to claim your individuality, to understand what was your purpose during this life, which moves you to the 4th level of the ancestors, where those that have gone through the cleansing stage is in that space, which I guess you'd call purgatory. After that cleansing, you await that next level, which is the review of your life from your celestial parents, where they call it God, where they call it saints, angels, whatever it may be. That review of your life to see how closely you went with accordance to your soul contract, the purpose that you came into this life. Did you come into this life to speak the truth of Jesus? Did you come into this life to speak the truth of enlightenment? Did you come into this life to speak the truth of being a humanitarian? It facilitates all levels, and then from that you move to the 5th plane, which is meeting your original face, meeting that space that the atheist spoke of, that space that we're before birth.
How do you know that this happens? This sounds like a very complicated
Detailed,
process.
yeah.
How do you know that this happens?
Part of the procedure is a journey that goes through all of these levels, that goes through all of these phases, is encountering individuals on these levels and bringing back guidance or messages for individuals that are in the earth plane, that are alive now, that they need that closure to move on to the next level.
Can you say, sir, because you said that at one point in your transition you had to die.
Correct.
So can you say that can you definitively say that you've experienced any of these
That
levels?
was my experience, moving through all of the levels with my guide,
Right.
moving to see the original face, to understand what they consider the divine comedy, which is that all of us have these aspects of the truth, of life, of being. The atheist has that view and concept that we are here and there's no one greater than us, so we have to make the best of this life that we have. The religious individuals have the edicts and the truths and the discipline that is also a part of becoming a humanitarian, and at the end of it all, the concept is just to live a life of love and sharing that peace and unity with all that we meet.
I know my producer's going to kill me, but Mr. Forrest, I have to ask this question to you. Is there any kind of doctrine, any kind of evidence, anything at all that kind of gives you some kind of answer, or anything to say that, well, this could possibly be what happens to us after we die? Or you just think that's it?
No evidence. There's no evidence whatsoever to suggest that there's any quote-unquote life after death.
And nothing that has made you even think, well, maybe that could work.
Well, I'm going to put it to you and your listeners. What do you think is more likely? That the story that you just heard a while ago is true, or that the storyteller is either delusional or suffering from a mental
You see, I've never met an atheist. I've never spoken to an atheist. As a matter of fact, I didn't know they still exist. At the same time, what the type of insults that you make is very typical, is what I would expect of an atheist.
No.
All right, hold on. We don't want to turn to. We do have to wrap up now. We do have to wrap up.
All right. Well,
So we can't give you any more words, Mr. Forrester, but we have to thank you.
Thank you very much for coming on, Mr. Forrester.
No problem.
All right.
Have a good night.
All right.
All right. Thanks also to Robert Pearman, our shaman and indigenous leader. Shahid Mohammed, Arabic and Islamic studies teacher. Earlier we had on Ordina Tucker, who is an elder at the Palm Seventh-day Adventist Church. Thanks again to Clive Forster, our atheist. On the line, this was certainly a discussion to be had for days. It's really not going to end here, so I expect people to stop me on the road and ask me about it.
Yeah. It doesn't end here. It continues and it goes on, of course. Producer Fiona Fennell, of course.
Fiona is what's happening over there? I'm going to find a word for you, Fee. All right, we also want to say thank you to our engineer,
Charlie.
He's laughing. But thank you very much to everybody behind the scenes doing the work. And we saw
Peter
Sanjay.
Brown.
Sanjay
I
ran
can't believe
over.
that wrong. And Sanjay who ran over.
Who ran over to scream when he heard